Hey everyone, welcome to Bookish Nook, and I'm here to give you guys my first book review. And my first book review is going to be The Edge of Always by J.A. Redmerski. This is a sequel to her other book, The Edge of Never. So if you haven't read that, you should probably leave because this is going to be full of spoilers. So first I'm going to begin with a sort of non-spoiler review of the book and then go into a spoiler review. So the story takes off with Cameron and Andrew sort of living together and deciding what to do with the rest of their life now that they're together and they found each other. They find out that they're pregnant and they decide to go back to Cameron's hometown to stay for a bit and decide where they want to live. Cameron is leaning towards Raleigh, I think it's pronouncing that right, and Andrew doesn't care as long as he's with Cameron. They find out they're pregnant and everything is going well, but she ends up losing the baby. And she makes some decisions that aren't that great, and Andrew has to make a decision of whether or not to go on another road trip to find themselves again. The book was really well written. The characters developed nicely, just like the first one, but I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I didn't really enjoy this book as much as the first one because I figured I didn't really like that it was a sequel. I thought the first one was fantastic as a standalone only. There was no reason to continue the story, to be honest. It was sort of about them two finding themselves on the road and then finding each other. So I think that continuing the story just kind of ruined it for me. So, alright, now I'm going to get into a little bit more. What I really liked about this story was Cameron's progression as a character. You know, she becomes someone who's a lot stronger by the end of the novel and a lot less needy. Needy isn't the right word, but the one thing I did not like about the other characters is Andrew. He is so whipped and doesn't really have an opinion almost, other than when Cameron doesn't do something he wants her to do. There's so many times in the novel where he was like, I'm gonna let her decide, and then she ends up deciding anyway, so he doesn't really, he was so whipped and she walked all over him, I thought, and I didn't like that at all. I thought that when they actually went onto the road, it was really long and it took me a little while to get through it. Like, I enjoyed it, but I just figured that it was almost like a repeat of the first one, and it wasn't that as well written and as well plotted out as the first one. You know, they found themselves saying, oh, we're gonna be spontaneous and we're not gonna plan anything, and then they end up planning that they want to go down I think it's Florida's East Coast, and then they say, oh, we're gonna stay in New Orleans for a little bit longer than we did last time, and they end up staying for not even a day, I think it was. So I just figured all those, I guess it's the characters, right? It's their nature, but it was a little annoying. I was so annoyed with Cameron, and she was just constantly needing someone to hold her hand and do things. So I guess the whole point of her was because at the end of the novel she's not as bad, but it was still really annoying. She annoyed me as a character. Near the end of the novel, though, she sort of redeems herself because she's not as needy and she's not as, latched onto Andrew, and Andrew's sort of, I guess, his own person by the end. Not really, but what I did not at all like about this book, is that it completely wrapped up their story. They have a kid together, they end up having another kid, and that kid grows up, and they bring her on this whole trip across South America and then in Europe, and then it's sort of just like the ending of the book was just so fast paced. Like, it was, she's pregnant, and then a paragraph later she's giving birth, and then a paragraph later they're going across, on this big road trip with their 2-year-old child, and then the 2-year-old child is graduating, and she's in university, and she wants to go on a road trip to Africa, and her parents are on a trip. I didn't like that, and the last chapter was from the kid's perspective, and that sort of makes me believe that there's going to be another novel attached to this, and it'll be from her perspective, and I don't think I'm going to read that because this story is a little played out to me. After the first one, I was very satisfied, and I almost didn't pick up The Edge of Always because I was very satisfied with the first book, and I didn't want to ruin it, but I did anyways, and it was a lot better than I was expecting, so that's good. So yeah, those are my thoughts. If you've read this and you disagree with me, tell me why. I'd love to hear what you guys think. If you think the same as me with the characters or the plot or the story in general. So let me know down below.